Welcome back to our channel, Rare Coins All World, the attention of collectors and investors alike for decades. We're talking about the United States 1965 Washington quarter dollar, a coin that might just be sitting in your collection, or even in your loose change, waiting to be discovered. But don't let the simple appearance fool you, this quarter could be worth much more than its face value. Stick with me as we explore what makes the 1965 Washington quarter so significant, its history, and how much it could be worth today. Before we jump into its value, let's take a step back and talk about the historical context of the 1965 Washington quarter. The mid-1960s was a time of great change in the United States. The country was in the midst of the space race, the civil rights movement, and Vietnam War. On the economic front, the United States was dealing with inflation and the complexities of a shifting global economy. During this time, the U.S. Mint was dealing with its own challenges, primarily the rising costs of precious metals. This led to a major change in U.S. coinage, especially when it came to the quarter. Up until 1964, quarters were made of 90% silver, which gave them not only intrinsic value but also a unique shine and weight. However, by 1965, the U.S. Mint made a groundbreaking decision. They removed silver from the quarters and replaced it with a combination of copper and nickel. This shift was done to cut costs and deal with the shortage of silver, which had become a growing concern. As a result, the 1965 Washington quarter became the first in the modern era to be made without any silver. While it might not have the precious metal value it once did, the change itself marked a pivotal moment in U.S. coinage history. Now, you might be wondering, why is the 1965 Washington quarter worth so much money? After all, the coin is not made of silver, and it was minted in relatively large quantities. So, what sets this coin apart from others? The answer lies in a rare and highly sought-after minting error that occurred with the 1965 Washington quarter. The 1965 quarter is known for a very specific type of error, the double die variety. A double die error occurs when the die used to strike the design on the coin malfunctions, causing the design to be struck twice or more on the same coin. In the case of the 1965 Washington quarter, the double die error can be seen clearly on certain features of the coin, particularly around the word "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date. This error, though subtle, creates a distinctive look that's immediately noticeable to seasoned collectors and numismatists. Finding a 1965 Washington quarter with this double die error is incredibly rare, and that's what makes these coins so valuable. The more pronounced the error, the higher the potential value. In fact, depending on the condition of the coin and the severity of the error, these quarters can sell for significant amounts, well above their face value. But the rarity of the error isn't the only thing that drives up the price of the 1965 Washington quarter. The coin's age also plays a role in its value. As time goes on, older coins naturally become harder to find in good condition. The 1965 quarter, with its lack of silver, wasn't considered valuable when it was first released, so many of them were used in everyday transactions and wore down over the years. Coins that have survived in excellent condition, without excessive wear and tear, are much harder to find today. Collectors highly prize coins that have been well preserved, and these coins tend to fetch much higher prices than those that have seen a lot of circulation. For collectors, finding a 1965 Washington quarter with a minting error, in pristine condition, is like finding a needle in a haystack. It's a rare opportunity, and that's why these coins have skyrocketed in value. So, what could a coin like this actually be worth? A 1965 Washington quarter with a noticeable double die error and in excellent, uncirculated condition could easily fetch $190,000, yes, you heard that right, $190,000 for a single quarter. It's hard to believe, but the truth is that the market for rare coins is incredibly robust, and collectors are always on the lookout for coins with unique characteristics like the 1965 double die Washington quarter. If you happen to own one of these coins, or if you come across one in your collection or in your pocket change, it's definitely worth taking a closer look. It could very well be a hidden treasure. If you suspect that you found a 1965 Washington quarter with a double die error, the first thing you'll want to do is examine the coin closely. Take a good look at the lettering, particularly around Liberty and In God We Trust, to see if there's any noticeable doubling or distortion. If you're not sure what to look for, it's always a good idea to get your coin professionally appraised or graded by a reputable coin grading service. They'll be able to tell you whether your coin is a valuable error coin and give you an accurate assessment of its market value. Today, we're taking a deep dive into one of the most fascinating coins from the 1970s, the 1973 Washington Quarter. You might think, it's just a quarter, but don't be fooled. This particular quarter has a secret waiting to be uncovered, and today we're going to explore just why this coin could be worth way more than its face value. The 1973 Washington Quarter is part of the iconic Washington series of coins, first introduced in 1932 to honor the first President of the United States, George Washington. However, by the 1970s, the Washington Quarter had been through a few changes, namely in its composition. While earlier quarters were made of 90% silver, by 1965, the U.S. Mint had switched to a composition of copper and nickel due to rising silver prices. The 1973 quarter continued this trend, and like the quarters from the years before it, it was produced in massive numbers, circulating widely across the country. Now, most of these quarters didn't hold much value beyond their face value of 25 cents. After all, they were part of everyday transactions, just like any other quarter. However, what makes the 1973 Washington Quarter so intriguing is that over the years, a certain rare variation of this coin has caught the attention of collectors, and it's sending ripples through the coin world. So what makes the 1973 Washington Quarter so special? The answer lies in a unique error that occurred during the minting process. Minting errors are relatively common in the world of numismatics, but some of these mistakes can lead to coins that are incredibly valuable. In particular, the 1973 quarter features an error known as the double die variety. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin isn't perfectly aligned during the minting process, resulting in a design that's doubled, or appears more than once. With the 1973 Washington Quarter, the double die error is most commonly seen around the lettering, such as Liberty, the date, 1973, and In God We Trust. The doubling creates a distinctive look, making these quarters stand out from the rest. For any coin enthusiast, finding one of these error coins is like finding a hidden gem, and it's no surprise that they're highly sought after. But here's the thing, this isn't just any ordinary double die error. Some of these 1973 Washington quarters have an even more unusual feature, a combination of a die crack and a double die error. A die crack happens when there's a flaw in the die that causes the metal to crack, which then shows up as a raised line or indentation on the coin's surface. When combined with the double die error, this makes for a truly unique coin, one that's even rarer and more desirable among collectors. Now, you might be wondering, why are these error coins worth so much? After all, the 1973 Washington Quarter wasn't made of precious metals, so how can it be worth more than its face value? Well, it all comes down to rarity, condition, and demand. The vast majority of the 1973 quarters that were minted were struck correctly, and they're still circulating in people's change to this day. However, the error coins are incredibly rare, and when you find one in pristine condition, the value goes through the roof. In fact, the value of a 1973 Washington Quarter with a double die error can be astronomical. While the average, uncirculated version of the 1973 quarter might only be worth a few dollars above face value, a 1973 quarter with a notable double die error, especially one in excellent condition, can command a hefty price. In some cases, the price has been known to climb into the thousands of dollars. But hold on to your seats because, in certain rare instances, the value of a perfectly preserved 1973 Washington Quarter can go as high as $180,000, that's right, $180,000 for a single quarter. It's hard to believe, but the coin market can be full of surprises, and this particular error coin is a true collector's dream. If you're lucky enough to stumble upon a 1973 Washington Quarter with a double die error, it could change your life. But how can you tell if you found one? The first step is to closely examine the coin, especially the key areas like the date, Liberty, and In God We Trust. Look for any signs of doubling, where the lettering appears thicker or has a second impression. Next, check for any die cracks or other imperfections that could add to the coin's rarity. A magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe can help you get a better look at the details. If you suspect that your coin has the double die error, it's a good idea to have it professionally graded by a reputable coin grading service. They'll be able to confirm whether it's the real deal and provide you with an accurate assessment of its value. Today, we're taking a closer look at a coin that might just be sitting in your collection or hiding in your change jar, the 1982 Washington quarter dollar. At first glance, it might seem like just another standard quarter, but trust me, this coin is anything but ordinary. Stick around as we reveal why the 1982 Washington quarter could be worth way more than you'd expect, and what makes it such an interesting and valuable find in the world of numismatics. The Washington quarter dollar series has been around for decades, first introduced in 1932 to honor the first president of the United States, George Washington. Over the years, this coin has gone through many different changes, both in design and composition. By the 1980s, the Washington quarter was a staple of everyday currency, and the U.S. Mint was minting millions of them each year. But as any seasoned collector knows, not all coins are created equal. Some quarters from this era have a unique feature or characteristic that makes them far more valuable than others, and the 1982 Washington quarter is one of those coins. So, what's the deal with the 1982 Washington quarter? Well, this particular coin comes from a time when the U.S. Mint was still producing quarters with a copper-nickel composition. The 1982 quarter was minted in large quantities, and like most coins from this era, they were circulated widely across the country. In fact, there's nothing particularly unusual about the basic design or composition of the 1982 Washington quarter at first glance. It looks like your typical Washington quarter, featuring an image of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse. But here's where things get interesting. While most of the 1982 Washington quarters are worth only their face value of 25 cents, there are certain rare versions of this coin that have become incredibly sought after by collectors. These rare coins are the result of minting errors, which occurred during the production process. Minting errors are a huge deal in the world of coin collecting, and they can significantly increase the value of a coin, sometimes by thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, of dollars. The most notable error associated with the 1982 Washington quarter is the D/S mintmark variety. This error happens when a coin is struck with the wrong mintmark on the die. For the 1982 Washington quarter, this error occurred when a D mintmark was stamped over a S mintmark. The result? A very rare coin that stands out from the rest of the 1982 quarters. The D/S error coins are particularly valuable because they are so rare. Only a small number of these coins were made, and they've become highly sought after by collectors looking to complete their collections. The D/S mintmark error can be spotted by closely examining the mintmark on the reverse of the coin. If you look closely at the D mintmark, you might notice that it has a faint S mintmark underneath, indicating that the coin was originally struck with an S mintmark before being overstruck with the D. This type of error is a highly prized discovery among collectors, and it's what drives the incredible value of this particular coin. But the D/S error is not the only thing that can make the 1982 Washington quarter valuable. Over the years, some 1982 quarters have been found in mint condition, coins that have been preserved and remain almost untouched by the passage of time. Finding a coin that has survived for decades without significant wear is a rarity in itself, and collectors are always on the lookout for pristine examples of coins from this era. So, if you happen to come across a 1982 Washington quarter in near-perfect condition, it could very well be worth far more than you'd expect. Now, you might be wondering, how much are these rare 1982 Washington quarters really worth? Well, if you've got a coin with the D/S mintmark error and it's in excellent condition, you could be looking at a coin worth an impressive sum of money. In fact, Some of these rare 1982 Washington quarters have been sold for as much as $185,000. Yes, you read that correctly, $185,000 for a single quarter. That's the power of rare minting errors combined with excellent preservation. The 1982 Washington quarter with the D/S error is one of those coins that has captured the attention of collectors and investors alike. It's the kind of find that can turn a modest coin collection into a small fortune, and it's no surprise that collectors are always on the hunt for these rare error coins. Today, we're diving into a coin from the early 1980s that may not look all that extraordinary at first glance, but trust me, this coin is hiding a big secret. The 1983 Washington Quarter Dollar. The Washington Quarter series is one of the most iconic coins in U.S. history, and this particular year, 1983, might not immediately stand out like some of the older silver coins or those from earlier years with exciting design changes. However, if you take a closer look, you might find that the 1983 Washington Quarter is much more than just another piece of 25-cent currency. Like many of its predecessors, the 1983 quarter features the timeless image of George Washington, the first President of the United States, on the obverse, and an eagle on the reverse. So, what makes the 1983 Washington Quarter so special, and why is it turning heads among collectors today? To understand why the 1983 Washington Quarter is drawing so much attention, we have to look at a few key factors: rarity, condition, and minting errors. First, let's talk about the rarity. While the 1983 Washington Quarter was minted in significant numbers, there's a catch. The U.S. Mint made changes to the coin's composition, switching from the silver-based alloy to a copper-nickel mixture in 1965. So, by the time 1983 rolled around, the quarter was made of a mix of copper and nickel, which meant they weren't as rare or valuable as silver quarters. However, a certain subset of the 1983 quarters has become highly valuable, and that's due to something much more exciting: the coin's potential for minting errors. Minting errors are when something goes wrong during the production process, causing the coin to have a flaw. While most of these errors might be hard to spot with the naked eye, there are certain telltale signs that collectors and coin hunters look for to determine whether a coin has an error that significantly increases its value. One of the most sought-after varieties of the 1983 Washington Quarter is the DDR, or double die reverse error. In simple terms, a double die error happens when the die used to strike the coin isn't properly aligned during the minting process. This results in a coin where the design appears to be doubled, creating extra details or a blurred image on one side of the coin. In the case of the 1983 Washington Quarter, this error typically shows up in the reverse design, where you'll notice that the eagle's details are not just duplicated but appear misaligned, giving the coin an almost ghostly effect. If you're lucky enough to find one of these 1983 Washington Quarters with the DDR error, you've got something quite special on your hands. While it might seem like a small flaw, this type of error makes the coin far rarer than its typical counterparts, and collectors pay top dollar for these kinds of discoveries. But that's not the only factor contributing to the value of the 1983 Washington Quarter. Another thing to keep in mind is the coin's condition. Even without any minting errors, some of these quarters have become highly valuable simply because of how well they've been preserved over the years. Coins that are in near mint or mint condition, meaning they show little to no wear, are more desirable to collectors. A well-preserved coin from 1983 has the potential to fetch a higher price because it's becoming increasingly difficult to find coins from this era in such good condition. If you happen to have one of these well-preserved 1983 Washington Quarters in your collection, it could make you a nice profit when sold. Now, let's get to the most exciting part: how much is a 1983 Washington Quarter worth? The truth is, a typical 1983 Washington Quarter isn't going to be worth much more than face value unless it has a unique characteristic. But if you're fortunate enough to have a 1983 Washington Quarter with the DDR error or one in near-perfect condition, you could be sitting on something quite valuable. The price of these rare coins can soar to significant figures, and in some cases, you might even see them go for as much as $188,000. Yes, you heard that right. $188,000 for a single 1983 Washington Quarter. That might sound unbelievable, but in the world of coin collecting, rare minting errors and coins in exceptional condition can command sky-high prices. For collectors looking for that one special piece to complete their set or investors hoping to cash in on a rare find, the 1983 Washington Quarter with the DDR error is a true gem. If you've got a 1983 Washington Quarter in your possession, it's worth taking the time to examine it closely. Look for any doubling on the reverse side, particularly around the eagle or the lettering. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to get a better view of the design. If you spot any doubling or other minting anomalies, you might just have a treasure on your hands. Remember, having the coin professionally graded and authenticated is always a good idea to determine its exact value. Today, we're focusing on a coin that might just be the hidden gem you've been overlooking, the 1995 Washington Quarter Dollar. At first glance, it may seem like just another standard quarter, but believe me, this coin is much more special than you might think. Let's dive into what makes the 1995 Washington Quarter a potential gold mine for coin collectors and how it could be worth a small fortune today. The Washington Quarter is one of the most iconic coins in the U.S. mint's history. First issued in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, this quarter has stood the test of time. The design has changed in various ways over the decades, but it has always maintained the image of George Washington on the obverse, with the reverse traditionally showing an eagle. The coin was issued in large quantities for many years, but as with any popular series, not all coins are valued equally. So, what sets the 1995 Washington Quarter apart? In the case of the 1995 Washington Quarter, there are a couple of key factors that make this coin a valuable find: minting errors, scarcity, and the coin's overall condition. But before we get into the specifics of what makes this quarter unique, let's take a look at the historical context surrounding the coin. By the mid-1990s, the Washington Quarter had been in circulation for more than 60 years, and the U.S. Mint had already undergone several transitions. The Washington Quarter from 1995 was minted at the time when the United States was enjoying relative economic stability, and this coin was a part of everyday transactions. Thousands, if not millions, of these quarters were produced and circulated across the country. However, just like with any other coin, not all of them were kept in pristine condition. Some quarters from this era have been lost to time and heavy circulation, making the ones that remain in excellent shape more valuable. What makes the 1995 Washington Quarter even more intriguing is the presence of certain rare varieties and minting errors that increase the value of the coin exponentially. These minting errors can be found on coins from the U.S. Mint's various facilities, and some of them are highly coveted by collectors. A minting error occurs when the coin die or striking process doesn't align perfectly, resulting in a coin with a flaw or anomaly. While these types of errors are often subtle, they can dramatically increase the value of a coin, turning it from a typical quarter into a rare collector's item. The most notable errors associated with the 1995 Washington Quarter are typically minor, but they can cause the coin to fetch a much higher price than its face value. Some of these errors include double die strikes, where the coin's design appears to be duplicated, or over-stamped mint marks, where a coin is struck with an incorrect mint mark or a mint mark that was struck multiple times. These errors, though not always easy to spot, can turn an ordinary 1995 quarter into a highly valuable rarity, with prices climbing into the thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, of dollars. But it's not just the errors that make the 1995 Washington Quarter valuable. The condition of the coin plays a huge role in its worth. Coins from this era are becoming increasingly scarce in pristine, uncirculated condition. Most 1995 Washington Quarters have been heavily used and show signs of wear, but if you happen to find one that has been carefully preserved in excellent condition, it could fetch a significant amount of money. Coins that are in near mint or mint condition are highly sought after by collectors, as they represent the best examples of the coin from that year. Even a quarter without any errors, but in exceptional condition, can command a pretty penny. So, let's talk about the value. You might be wondering how much a 1995 Washington Quarter could be worth if you happen to have one of these rare finds. Well, if you've got a 1995 Washington quarter with a minting error or in near-perfect condition, you could be sitting on a small fortune. Coins like these have been known to fetch impressive prices at auction and through private sales. In fact, some of these rare 1995 quarters have been sold for as much as $190,000, yes, you heard that correctly, $190,000 for a single 1995 Washington quarter. That's the potential value of a coin that might have been lying around in your collection, in your spare change, or even hidden away in a forgotten drawer. A coin that was once just another piece of currency has the potential to turn into a rare collector's item worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you think you have one of these rare 1995 Washington quarters in your possession, now is the time to take a closer look. Examine the coin carefully for any signs of minting errors or unique characteristics. Look for signs of doubling on the design, particularly on the reverse, or check the mint mark for any irregularities. If you find something unusual, it's a good idea to have the coin professionally graded and authenticated. A certified coin with the right characteristics can command a premium price. In conclusion, the 1995 Washington quarter may seem like just another coin at first, but when you take into account the potential for minting errors, its scarcity in excellent condition, and its growing desirability among collectors, this quarter becomes a true treasure. So, if you're lucky enough to find one of these rare gems in your collection, or stumble upon one in your change, don't overlook its value. You could be holding a coin worth $190,000. Thanks for watching, and happy collecting.